Villar Perosa, Italy. Designed in 1914 by Italian engineer Abiele Bethel Ravelli and officially put into service in 1915, the Villar Perosa looked unlike any infantry weapon of its time. The Villar Perosa M1915 used 9mm Glisenti ammunition, operated on a blowback mechanism, and featured an extremely unusual twin-barrel design with two barrels placed side by side. Each barrel was fed by a 25-round magazine mounted from the top, giving a total of 50 rounds for both sides. The weapon was about 533 millimeters long, with a barrel length of about 320 millimeters and weighed around 6.5 kilograms without its mount. The most astonishing feature of the Villar Perosa was its rate of fire. Each barrel could reach around 1,200 to 1,500 rounds per minute, meaning that when both barrels fired at the same time, the total rate of fire could reach nearly 3,000 rounds per minute. Instead of being carried on the shoulder like other infantry weapons, the Villar Perosa was usually mounted on a bipod, a steel shield, or even on bicycles used by the elite Bersaglieri troops. Although it was difficult to control and not suitable as a personal weapon, the Villar Perosa is still considered one of the designs that paved the way for the birth of the modern submachine gun. Next is the MP-18, a weapon that many consider to be the world's first true submachine gun. Developed by engineer Hugo Schmeisser and produced by Theodor Bergmann Waffenbau in 1918, the MP-18 used 9x19mm parabellum ammunition, operated on a blowback mechanism, and fired from an open bolt. The weapon had an overall length of about 832 millimeters, a barrel length of about 200 millimeters, and weighed more than 4 kilograms when unloaded. Its rate of fire was around 350 to 500 rounds per minute, and the first version used a 32-round TM-08 drum magazine. With an effective range of about 100 to 200 meters, the MP-18 was designed mainly for close-range combat in the trenches, where rate of fire was more important than long-range accuracy. The MP-18 proved its value in the trench battles near the end of the war, but it still had many limitations. To improve this design, the famous engineer Hugo Schmeisser continued to develop a more advanced version, the MP-28. Introduced in the late 1920s, the MP-28 commonly used 9x19mm parabellum ammunition, operated on a blowback mechanism, and fired from an open bolt. The weapon was about 820 millimeters long, with a barrel length of about 200 millimeters, and weighed around 4 kilograms when unloaded. Compared to the MP-18, the important improvement of the MP-28 was its left side box magazine and the ability to select between semi-automatic and fully automatic fire. With a rate of fire of about 500 to 600 rounds per minute and an effective range of about 100 to 150 meters, the MP-28 stood out in combat thanks to its reliability and practicality. It did not have an extremely high rate of fire like some later models, but that actually made it easier to control. Next is the Beretta Model 1918, which was developed from the Villar Perosa M1915 design itself. But instead of having two parallel barrels, the Italians separated the system into a single barrel unit with a long wooden stock like a rifle. In terms of technical specifications, the Beretta Model 1918 used 9mm Glisenti ammunition, operated on a blowback mechanism, and was fed by a 25-round magazine mounted from the top. The weapon was about 855 millimeters long without the bayonet, had a barrel length of about 305 millimeters, and weighed around 3.3 kilograms. Most standard versions operated in semi-automatic mode, but some experimental variants were capable of automatic fire with a rate of about 900 rounds per minute. Although its classification is still debated, the Beretta Model 1918 is still considered an important transitional step between the Villar Perosa and later modern submachine guns. In actual combat, the Beretta 1918 was used by Italian assault units, especially the Arditi. These soldiers specialized in rapid attacks against enemy trenches, and a fast-firing, compact weapon like the Beretta 1918 was very suitable for that mission. Next is another weapon from Britain, the Sterling SMG. After World War II ended, the British Army realized that the Sten, although very useful during wartime, was still only a temporary solution. It was cheap and easy to produce, but its reliability and level of finish did not truly meet the standards of a post-war army. Because of that, Britain began looking for a new submachine gun, and the result was the birth of the Sterling submachine gun. In terms of technical specifications, the Sterling SMG used 9x19mm parabellum ammunition, operated on a blowback mechanism, and fired from an open bolt. The weapon was about 686 millimeters long with the stock extended, only about 481 millimeters long with the stock folded, had a barrel length of about 196 millimeters, and weighed around 2.7 kilograms. The Sterling used a 34-round curved magazine mounted on the left side, had a rate of fire of about 550 rounds per minute, and a muzzle velocity of about 390 meters per second. With an effective range of about 100 to 200 meters, the Sterling was considered a compact, accurate, and far more reliable submachine gun than the Sten Gun it replaced after the war. In actual combat, the Sterling served widely in the British military for many decades. It appeared on battlefields ranging from the Suez Crisis, the conflict in Northern Ireland, to the Falklands War. Owen Gun, Australia. In that harsh environment, many modern European weapons proved unreliable. It was this situation that led to the birth of one of the most effective but lesser-known submachine guns, the Owen submachine gun. In terms of technical specifications, the Owen gun used 9x19mm parabellum ammunition. It operated on a blowback mechanism and fired from an open bolt. The weapon was about 813 millimeters long, with a barrel length of about 250 millimeters. It weighed more than 4.2 kilograms without the magazine and nearly 4.9 kilograms when fully loaded. The Owen gun used a 33-round magazine mounted from the top. It had a rate of fire of about 700 rounds per minute and a muzzle velocity of about 366 meters per second. With an effective range of about 123 meters, the Owen gun was especially favored by Australian soldiers during campaigns in New Guinea and the Pacific Islands. Jungle fighting often took place at very close range, usually only a few dozen meters or less, making the Owen gun an ideal choice. And in an environment full of mud, rain, and high temperatures, the Owen proved superior to many famous European designs. During the middle period of World War II, as the war in the Pacific became increasingly brutal, Australia realized that it could not completely depend on weapons supplied from Britain. One of those efforts was the Austin submachine gun, a weapon designed as a combination of British weapon design and Australian local innovation. The name Austin was a combination of Australia and Sten, clearly reflecting its origin. In terms of technical specifications, the Austin SMG used 9x19mm parabellum ammunition. It operated on a blowback mechanism and fired from an open bolt. The weapon was about 844 millimeters long with the stock extended and about 552 millimeters with the stock folded. It had a barrel length of about 198 millimeters and weighed around 3.6 to 3.9 kilograms when unloaded. The Austin used a magazine mounted horizontally on the left side and could use either a 32-round Sten-type magazine or a 28-round Austin magazine. With a rate of fire of about 500 rounds per minute and an effective range of about 100 meters, the Austin was created as an Australian Sten. But in reality, it was not as popular with soldiers as the Owen gun because it was less reliable in harsh combat environments. The Lanchester SMG. The weapon was named after engineer George Herbert Lanchester, who was responsible for adapting the design for Britain. In reality, the Lanchester was almost a copy of the German MP-28, with some small changes to fit British production standards. In terms of technical specifications, the Lanchester SMG used 9x19mm parabellum ammunition. It had a side-mounted magazine and a long wooden stock, giving it a very traditional rifle-like feel. It operated on a blowback mechanism and fired from an open bolt. The weapon was about 850 millimeters long, with a barrel length of about 200 millimeters, and weighed around 4.3 kilograms when unloaded. It used a straight 50-round magazine and could also use a 32-round Sten-type magazine. With a rate of fire of about 600 rounds per minute and an effective range of about 150 meters, the Lanchester was a sturdy submachine gun. It was much more finely made than the Sten, but also more expensive and harder to produce. One notable feature was that the Lanchester was produced mainly for the Royal Navy. Sailors and naval landing forces needed a powerful weapon for close-range fighting, especially for defending ships or fighting during landings. In that role, the Lanchester performed quite effectively. Next is the German Irma EMP. Externally, the EMP had a fairly classic appearance, with a long wooden stock like a rifle, but its mechanical details had been significantly improved. In terms of technical specifications, the Irma EMP commonly used 9x19mm parabellum ammunition. It operated on a blowback mechanism and was fed by a 32-round box magazine mounted on the left side of the weapon. The gun was about 950mm long, with a barrel length of about 320mm and weighed around 4 kilograms. With a rate of fire of about 550 rounds per minute, a muzzle velocity of about 380 meters per second, and an effective range of about 150 meters, the Irma EMP was one of Germany's important submachine guns during the period between the two world wars. Although it was not as famous as the MP40, it helped shape the development path of later German submachine guns. The Type 100. The Type 100 was developed in the early 1940s under the direction of the famous designer Hijiro Nambu. It was the only submachine gun mass-produced by Japan during World War II. In terms of technical specifications, the Type 100 used 8x22mm Nambu ammunition. It operated on a blowback mechanism and was fed by a 30-round curved magazine. The weapon was about 890 to 900 millimeters long. It had a barrel length of about 228 to 230 millimeters and weighed around 3.7 to 3.8 kilograms when unloaded. The early version had a rate of fire of about 450 rounds per minute, while the improved 1944 version could reach around 800 rounds per minute. With a muzzle velocity of about 335 meters per second and an effective range of about 100 to 150 meters, the Type 100 had a distinctive design that strongly reflected Japanese military thinking. Some versions even had a bayonet mounted at the muzzle, something very rarely seen on submachine guns. This reflected the combat doctrine of the Japanese Army, which still considered bayonet close combat an important element, even in the age of automatic weapons. The Type 100 was mainly issued to paratroopers, naval landing units, and some special forces. However, because of limited production and Japan's combat philosophy, which still leaned heavily toward traditional rifles, the Type 100 was never deployed as widely as the submachine guns of Germany, Britain, or the Soviet Union. American 180. After World War II, as many nations entered the Cold War era and continued developing automatic personal weapons, the United States produced a weapon so strange that many people seeing it for the first time thought it looked like a science fiction movie prop. That weapon was the American 180. In terms of technical specifications, the American 180 used .22 long rifle ammunition, a much smaller cartridge than those used by conventional military submachine guns. The weapon operated on a blowback mechanism. It fired from an open bolt and could fire in both semi-automatic and fully automatic modes. The American 180 was about 900 millimeters long, with a barrel length of about 470 millimeters, and weighed around 2.6 to 3 kilograms when unloaded. Its most distinctive feature was its top-mounted drum magazine, which could hold from more than 100 to more than 200 rounds. With a rate of fire of about 1,200 rounds per minute, the American 180 proved that even a small cartridge like .22 long rifle could become extremely frightening when fired with an overwhelming density of fire. The shooter could almost keep the target on aim without the strong muzzle rise found in traditional submachine guns. Although it was not widely used by the U.S. military, the American 180 once attracted interest from some police forces and prisons in the United States. And that brings us to the end of today's video. These were some of the most unique submachine guns ever designed. Many of them featured side-mounted magazines, or unusual layouts that looked very different from ordinary firearms of their time. From the MP18 to the MP28, the Sten Gun, the Sterling, the Lanchester, and the Austin, each weapon carried its own story, a story of war, engineering, and human creativity during some of the most brutal periods in history. If you think this list is still missing another strange and unique submachine gun with a side-mounted magazine, let me know in the comments below. I would love to hear your thoughts. And if you enjoy stories about military history, rare weapons, and forgotten firearm designs, don't forget to follow, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the notification bell so you won't miss the next video. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.